Welcome to the Pillars of Progress podcast, where growth begins with forward motion. I'm Travis Justice. You know, whether it's in life, business, or the community, progress comes from taking the next step. And this podcast is all about sharing the stories of people who are driving real change and making a lasting impact. We kick things off with Dana Murray, founder and executive director of North Omaha Music and Arts. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the journey. Dana Murray, you are the first guest on the Pillars of Progress podcast, so welcome.
Lot to live up to. Hey, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
No, you're setting the bar is what it comes down to.
There you go. I'm setting a very high bar, so those of you who come after me, live up to that.
So North Omaha Music and Arts, you've been on board about 4 years now. You went through COVID, you got the 501c3.
Right.
What has been the last 4 years been like for you?
Well, it has been a life pivot. You know, when I was approached to do this, I was in full musician mode. So I just put out an album on Rope-A-Dope Records. I was touring. And when they came to me the first time, I had no time in my head to even think about that. Then COVID hit. Then it was like you start thinking about how you can make a difference. And they came again. I was like, you know what? I've got an idea. So I pitched it to the North 24th Street Business Improvement District, and they loved it. Then it went to the mayor, then she loved it, and the rest is history, yeah.
So is this a calling for you? Did you feel, was it one of those things where you're like, I'm getting called to do this?
I'll tell you this. I love education, and when I moved back to Omaha to raise my son after being in New York for 12 years, and that was around 2005, man, that's crazy. I didn't think about it like that. But I love educating equally as performing, you know? So a calling, yes. A responsibility, yes. Meaning, I'm from South Omaha, and a lot of my upbringing was in the South Omaha Project. So a lot of, the underserved community upbringing, when you are able to get out of that and go places and do some big things and live your dreams, you definitely feel a responsibility to give someone else a blueprint, a pathway, confidence, inspiration, motivation, whatever that is, so that they can use that to fuel themselves in their lives.
So before we dive into what everything NOMA does, let's go through your history. You said you grew up in South Omaha. Mm-hmm. How did you end up in New York City? Give us your musical path.
Man, well, I'm a drummer by trade. I got my first drum set. I mean, if you call it a drum set, it was a toy. I was probably 3 years old. But that definitely is what sort of lit the fire. And I started playing instruments in school in the fourth grade. It was actually saxophone because my mother couldn't afford to get a drum. So a friend of hers had a saxophone, and I started playing saxophone in the fourth grade. I think the band directors were so tired of me being backed by the drummers that they switched me full-time to drumming around my seventh grade year. And I probably got serious. And I say serious, meaning when you're practicing at least a couple hours a day. I probably got serious around my freshman year in high school, where I said, wow, this is something I want to get really good at. And by my junior year, it was easily 6 or 7 hours a day,
Consumed your life.
Yeah. There weren't, I'll put it to you like this. There weren't enough hours in a day with school, so I would have to get up before school and get an hour in. During school, I would skip lunch and practice, so that's another 45 minutes, an hour. And then after school, I was in the band room for at least hour and a half, 2 hours, as long as I could. And then another couple hours. So at least probably 6 hours, I probably by my junior year, probably just practicing, wanting to get, but it didn't seem like practice. It seemed like wow, this is how, I connected that dot very early on, that if I put work into this, that it's going to affect someone. As soon as the first person said, oh man, wow, that's cool, do that again, and you felt that energy from your music affecting someone, it was a wrap. So
then after South, where'd you end up?
So I got into this thing called drum and bugle corps around my sophomore, junior year. I had a great band director when I first started. His name was Mark Arnold. And he later, after my first year, he left South and became the corps director of the Blue Knights in Denver. But before he left, I can pinpoint back to where I sort of got serious about, and it was through marching, not drum set, actually. And so when I left high school, I was really in the drum and bugle corps. I marched in a corps out of Dubuque, Iowa, called the Colts. And I went to UNL on a marching band scholarship, believe it or not. And I was at UNL, I can't even say a semester. I went to UNL, and I was in.
You drove through Lincoln.
Well, I went there, and I went home for Christmas break and didn't go back. And I remember my parents saying, aren't you supposed to be back at school? No, I think it's going to be next. But the marching band's on TV. It's like, okay, yeah, about that. Just, it wasn't for me, UNL. I think me being young and right out of drum corps, I was sort of not mentally prepared for that type of, the university sort of music curriculum. So I was at home, while all my other friends were at school. So on one instance, it was very psychologically sort of stressful. But on the other hand, I had a lot of time to practice now. So I was easily putting in 10 hours a day practicing on rudimental and on drum set. So fast forward to the next fall is when I auditioned for Berklee College of Music in Boston. I got a scholarship, and that's where I went. So I was off to the East Coast.
That's like the Juilliard, right? I mean, yep. Juilliard and Berklee are very.
Yep.
So were you always interested in jazz? Were you interested in rock? How did your musical taste come to be?
A lot of people say this, but with me, it's the absolute truth. I listen to everything, and anything is good. And anything in any genre is what I like. So obviously, I'm a jazz musician. That's home to me, right? But I grew up listening to R&B, gospel, playing in church. My first transistor radio, I used to listen to the Beatles or Fleetwood Mac or any of those bands in the 70s that were on AM radio. I think probably that's where my sort of affinity for all types of genres came from. Because that's when I started listening, I guess, critically listening to something like, wow, what's that drummer doing? I can date all that back to that transistor radio. So obviously playing jazz, you're going to play a lot of different styles, but I love rock music. I grew up in an area where, you had, whether it was Ozzy Osbourne or whether it was, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, I loved that stuff too, still do. So all types of music as long as it's good. And I've listened to enough music that, my sense of discernment is such that, as long as it's quality, I love it.
I think it was on Amazon or it might have been Netflix. There's a big documentary on drummers, right?
Uh-huh.
Who was your influence? Like, who did you emulate when you were practicing 6, 8, 10 hours a day?
It's probably eras, So when I was young, I think everybody got into Buddy Rich because he played fast and loud, and it was just so technically outside of what you thought could be done. That's where your head gravitated to. It was more on a, higher, louder, faster sort of thing. But then you get older and you start getting into more of the musicality sense of it. So drummers like Joe Jones, drummers like Philly Joe Jones, Elvin Jones, Max Roach, Tony Williams, that were jazz drummers. But then you had drummers like Dennis Chambers, who was a great, is an incredible funk fusion drummer, or Steve Jordan, or Vinnie Colaiuta, or Steve Gadd. These were all contemporary sort of the drummers you could hear on the radio, but were also touring with all the bands you loved. So there was that sort of kind of drummer I was listening to as well. So again, really anyone who was, again, John Bonham, who, Led Zeppelin, all these great drummers, if they were part of a great band, I was checking them out.
So you go to Berkeley, obviously, or arguably one of the best music schools in the country. You cut albums, you're touring. Did you ever think you'd be back in Omaha?
Honestly, no, I didn't. And it had everything to do with artistry and music. I think the one thing that makes anyone leave an area is that you want to be around more people that are as driven as you, or that want, that have the type of love for music that you do. So, honestly, at that time when I was in New York, I never thought I'd be back in Omaha because it didn't represent that. Oddly enough, that is the very thing that NOMA tries to provide now. I remember what that felt like, having to leave, because there wasn't a lot motivating me. So everything about NOMA is about bridging that gap. Not only creating something that is going to nurture and foster young talent, but also keeps them here, right? Because right now, if a young person wants to max out, they still got to leave. And as long as we have that, brain drain is going to be a killer to this artistic community.
How would you rate the artistic community, musical community in Omaha?
On a scale of what to what?
1 to 10. Long pause.
A 3.
Really?
I will tell you why it's a 3. Now, let me juxtapose that with the potential. The potential is an 11, right? It's a 3 because of the conservative nature of the place. I don't mean politically. I mean that people are comfortable with where they are here, right? So there's a natural air of mediocrity, and that's not to disparage anyone. I mean, what I mean by that is a young musician who wants to be a professional, who wants to be the best they can be. Anyone that's in an area like LA or Nashville, Chicago, New York City, what makes someone better is not, I'm gonna go to this place and just, now I'm great. No, everybody around you is such on a higher level that motivates you to raise your bar. So there is a peer pressure for excellence just in the air. Just to go in that room and be around other musicians and be welcomed into that, your bar has to be high. And here, you don't have that high bar. We are starting to establish a higher bar here, but I think any musician that has been here, that's from here, that has gone on would say the same thing. But unlike a lot of areas, Omaha represents a place that you can plant a seed, and that seed can take root, and you can build an army of serious musicians here, right? I've shown that you can do that on a high school level. On a level, so that drum corps thing that we're talking about, I had a group called Dojo Percussion that was a nationally competitive percussion ensemble. And we won a world championship in our class from Omaha, Nebraska. No one was doing that then. No one was thinking about doing that kind of stuff. But from that, it spawned, I think, during that era, there were 6 or 7 independent local percussion groups, which was crazy. That was all built out of them seeing someone else do it. It's like, oh, that's where the bar is now. So I've seen that happen where you can create a peer pressure for excellence. But without that, it's very, very hard because you remove that out of the scene, which, I stopped directing that now, 2015. And it's amazing how quickly that scene can go back down to whatever it is. So again, I don't say 3 because, Omaha sucks. I say 3 because I'm from here. I'm uniquely qualified to comment on what it is and what it could be, right? On all levels. I want nothing more than this area to be, to live up to its potential. But the natural way of things fights against it. And that's real,
So I'm going to call you General Patton then, because you're building the Army here at NOMA. And a lot of people may not be familiar. This is the old Love's Jazz location. So how are you building your Army? Through classes? How are you motivating that next wave of talent?
Right. Well, the entire time we've been here, it's been about building capacity, right? This place has been, the backbone of it has been built on the in-kind service and a sacrifice for a place like this, because without this, it'd be impossible. But now that we're gaining more capacity, we're offering more classes. We're offering more programmatic elements, because forever it was just our sessions. That's programming to me. If you don't have a session, it's very hard to build a scene into something more. So the first thing we did when we got keys to this building is start a weekly session. Was like, well, man, you're not even bringing out a lot of money. You're doing week because you got to do it consistently. So yeah, it's a heavy lift when you're just starting out, but it's necessary. And I think the people that come in the building, especially that were coming in the building at that time, they could feel the sacrifice. They could feel the passion and commitment to artistry and music education that they want to be a part of that. Not only the young musicians, but the music lovers. So that was the first thing we did, was just create something consistent. And that it was in this building. It's important to me to bring people down here to this area. Well, people don't have a problem coming down here. You just have to have a destination that they want to come to. And what better destination than music, right?
Brings people together.
Exactly, right? So we've been able to create that sort of holistic fraternity of music. Now we're about to raise the level with bringing in more national acts. So this place will be a legitimate national music venue here very soon, with these coming months. We're offering way more programs. So we're here in the building. They're doing renovations. We're having a piano lab built. We're having an electronic drum lab built. Say electronic drum lab because that's the easiest way to teach a bunch of kids a drum set and not go crazy with the noise. So we have that. We're going to have a dance studio. So, the curriculum is such that whatever you play, whether it's trumpet, saxophone, drums, everyone has to take piano, regardless of their instrument. Everyone has to take dance. Everyone. So because a musician that can't dance is ridiculous. So that is sort of the core of the education. So we have the education, we have the entertainment side. Again, we build up young musicians, and those who do want to carry on and maximize their skill, we want to create an environment that, fuels this entire city to have more to offer to keep some of the musicians?
You know, I stumbled upon NOMA through just friends who invited me to a Monday night sessions. And then I came for a singer-songwriter night and just blown away. I mean, it's so much fun to watch the sessions of guys and gals switching up instruments and switching drums, switching piano, switching bass. Then the singer-songwriters, and you go, wow, there's so much talent and a diversity of music. I mean, you have from gospel to blues to country. I mean, there really is a wide range for everybody.
You know, I wish you had come when we were first starting the sessions. It's amazing to see some of the musicians, how they blossom, because they were scared to get up. And at our underground session, so we have a jazz session, which is, you know, standards, a typical jazz session. But our NOMA underground is very, I say New York, because we were doing sessions where it was all improv, and the musicians would just be making up grooves on the spot, and you may have poets coming in, rapper, musicians, DJs, and that energy is what I put into the NOMA underground session that you're talking about. And these musicians were scared as hell to get up at first, and they were like, well, what do you mean we're going to make it up? And it was so foreign to them. But fast forward now 2 years, over 2 years we've been doing it, and to see the ease in which they come in and out of genres, how they're fearless now. They understand that failure or perceived failure is part of it. You don't grow without that. So I guess a lot of what we teach is learning how to fail, you know, because you fail all the time in your journey, endeavoring to become a more complete musician. And most are afraid of that journey because it's discomfort. And you got to get comfortable with that discomfort. And I think that's what the sessions represent, really, is the ability to get comfortable with the discomfort of growth.
Do you see a lot more musicians showing up and wanting to be a part? I mean, when you first started, probably the same group. Is it growing and growing and growing?
The session is growing. It started out, you know, we'd have like 10 people. Then it grew to 15, then 20, then 30. You know, on a good night, we may have 60 or 70 people in here, you know. On an average, probably 45 to 50. So it still looks like there's a good amount of people in here. But that is still without a lot of the professionals in this city, you know, the ones that should be coming out, not because they want to go to a jazz jam, no, just to support the continuum of the art form. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I called it a 3 on a level of 1 to 10, because the responsibility that most musicians have to the scene itself, that's what's missing in Omaha. We don't have that, at least not in jazz, that's for sure. You know, I think they had that back in the day. I mean, that's what this North Omaha was built on. You look at all the people that came through North Omaha, all of the heavy musicians that became greats that are from North Omaha, that's not by coincidence. So the spirit of that was once here, and there's no one that speaks about what I'm talking about. Then you talk to some of the older cats that are from here. You know, cats like the great Ronnie Beck, who's an incredible drummer, played with Tower Power. It's like they have hard feelings about, not negative feelings, they have very pointed feelings about the state of things now because they were in that golden era, right? And it's very easy to think that you are more than you are, right? And I think what NOMA also represents is discernment, you know, just teaching someone where the bar really is. And then let them figure that out on their own. It's not rocket science.
So basically, there's a bar, but there's no rules, right? How you get? I mean, there's a lot of improv in music and stuff. But I mean, you mentioned the marching band curriculum, right? You probably felt more comfortable hey, I don't learn that way. I'm going to go do it a different way.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have my own way of teaching, but what is, I guess, the common denominator or the things that are synonymous in all forms of development is the work, right? As long as someone gets to the end result, and if you're serious, you're always looking for an efficient way to get from point A to B. Whether, okay, I'm going to transcribe this piece of music. Okay, I'm going to practice this group of things a day. Okay, let me really work on these sorts of things a day. It's like whatever it is that is going to get the result. And mind you, you don't see that result. You may not see that result you're looking for months, right? So,
years, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it is psychological. And unless you have people telling you that that your work isn't in vain, it is very hard to stay on that path.
I was talking to a college basketball coach the other day, and he said the win is in the work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The gig is the easy part. It's the commitment to development that separates people. Whenever I give a clinic masterclass, I don't care if I'm talking to grade schoolers or I'm talking to college kids, adults, whatever, I ask the same question. I said, if given a choice, do you choose greatness or mediocrity? And let's equate mediocrity to doing something you have to do in life, not something you have a passion for that you love. No, you have to go and just do that same job you don't really like, but that's the way you make a living. I says, who chooses mediocrity? No one ever raises their hand. No one ever raises their hand. And then I say, okay, and let's say I'm talking to a group of grade schoolers, right, who are able to connect this dot for themselves. I say, so do you think most people end up doing things that are great, or do they end up in mediocrity? And they start saying, I think most people end up in mediocrity. Maybe their parents aren't happy with their job. Maybe they see their uncles or, and then I say, so what separates them? And the answers all are like intelligent. Because it's not that hard. Like, whoa, maybe they don't work as hard. Okay, commitment, passion. Maybe they haven't developed the passion. It all comes back to work ethic. And they figure that out on their own. And that's, to me, how you keep someone passionate about something or developing something. You got to get them to connect the dot on their own because you can't force feed them.
I mean, if you think greatness is the road less traveled. I mean, most people, when they come to fork in the road, it's like, oh, that's the easier path. Greatness is the hardest path.
But it's because it's a choice. If it was a prerequisite, or if it were life or death,
true,
most would achieve greatness, or most would maximize their potential.
Yes.
Like if their ability to breathe dependent on that, right?
Yep.
Because you have that thing called choice, that's the great separator, right? But most young people aren't given a chance, especially today, to even develop something. It was hard enough in my era, right? Now you have social media, you have all these other things drawing a young person's attention away or drawing their ability to really develop passion for something that's not just a herd mentality. Oh, I'm going to like this, or, oh, this is going to go viral. I'll be part of that. That's their life, right? Now, juxtapose that in a community like we're in at NOMA, where, young people are more adversely affected by any forms of trauma, let alone psychological development. And it's scary. It is a crisis, right? And again, if we looked at education, not just music education, I'm talking education, right? Just how we communicate things to young people, how we translate information, the way they receive it, there's no inspiration rolled in it. It's just random information, and they don't need us for information anymore. They got Google, YouTube, you can become a surgeon on YouTube if you're that driven. You know what I'm saying?
AI.
Exactly. It's like, so they don't need, like our generation did, the information. The information is there, but they're in this weird place in the timeline of humanity where they know everything and nothing at the same time because they're not inspired, right? So you get people that are graduating high school, going to college, maybe getting a degree that are lost. You find more of that than ever in the history of mankind, right? So how do you combat that?
You have to be an inspiration yourself, don't you?
Exactly. If you can't inspire a young person, you're not reaching them. The problem is now, in the society we live in, it doesn't it doesn't reward educators. We don't pay educators as if they are the lifeline to the next generation at all. So someone that is inspired, enthusiastic, the ability to translate information, that type A sort of person that potentially could go into education, they're not doing that most of the time. They're gonna go do something to make them some money. It's like, I'm not suffering there, right? So, I mean, this is a real question, and I pride myself on finding answers or coming up with solutions to problems. It is very hard to combat the equation that we're talking about. I find myself asking young people, what would best reach you? How would you best want to be educated? Because the adults don't have a clue. We have, and we're taking away more and more of the things that do inspire. Like, why would music and art not be in school? I don't care if a kid gets straight A's in math, science, history. If they don't have the creativity, right, to do something with that, then it's just random information. And that's sort of where we are.
You have a vision to get Omaha to an 11, and you walk in NOMA, and there's wonderful renderings of what you have planned here. Right. You want to add on. You want to make this building a community hub. What's it going to take to get there, besides money?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, I guess, raising $20 million is never easy, but that is the easy part. Again, we're talking about, it's just like music. The result of hard work is sort of the easy part. So when you're on stage, it's like, that's the easy part. I know how to raise money. And if I don't know, I'll go find people that are great at fundraising, are great at putting capital campaigns together. And that's been done a lot in this city. So the infrastructure, I guess, or the blueprint to do that is there. Convincing a community or a city that something like NOMA is a necessity for any growth of our young people, to move the needle, to be effective at communicating to them, that has been the hard part, right? Because I've gone about NOMA the same way I've gone about my own career. I'm going to go all out. I'm going to, my resolve is real. You know what I'm saying? When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to exhaust everything trying to do that. Everyone's not built like that. Even the music lover, even the parent of a potential kid that could come here, even a community stakeholder, whatever it is, there's more at stake, and the bar for excellence is higher. So it requires more output, right? Because NOMA could be great, but if everything around NOMA is not also coming up, then it's a failure. Not a failure. It definitely comes up short of what I envisioned it if that were to happen, because it's multi-layered. I came down here just on some music education stuff. It quickly grew into a vision to have some economic sustainability, to have some economic influence in this area, meaning if we can create destination, well, that foot traffic will now fuel restaurants, boutiques, other performance hubs, right? along with the education. All of those things are not only needed, they're a necessity for any vibrant community, right? So I had to become a student of what that was going to take. I'm still the student of that. It's like, what are we doing? What results are we trying to yield? And if you're committed to the results, that always keeps your bar high, and it has you in a perpetual state of feeling like there's something you're missing, right?
Yep.
That's how I always feel, because I don't want to miss nothing. Because it's not about trying to create it's cool little music down in NOMA. No, I'm literally trying to save lives, like literally. And that's a different endeavor when you go about it like that. Everybody doesn't look at it like that, but I see enough young people that I don't have a choice but to look at it like that.
You may have just answered my last question, which would be, the podcast is called Pillars of Progress. How is NOMA a pillar of the community?
One of the great things that makes things easier for me is we've been given a blueprint for what this place could be. So you got, there's a lot of what I call elders that come in this place. Jimmy Glass he's been around this community forever. He saw it when it was in its heyday. Joe Voda comes in here and they share stories with me. They bring memorabilia. They bring murals constantly. And we're going to be showcasing a lot of that stuff in the building. But when someone brings you a mural that has Nat King Cole, Duke Ellington, Ray Charles, B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. And all these greats played within a 3-block radius of where we are. Are you kidding me? Right? So I never feel like I'm creating something out of thin air or that I'm starting from just ground zero when I've been given so much history to build from. And I feel all of that energy, all of the spirits of all the people I just talked about. I can feel them saying, hey, you're good. You're good. Do this, and we've shown you that it can be great. Stay to the course, right? So the pillar of greatness, I'm not feeling like I have to create that. I feel like we have to revitalize the spirit of that, because that's here. It's just been covered up with a lot of pain, a lot of struggle, and not enough light can shine through right now. So that's the agenda.
And for people who want to know, and so the jazz sessions are on Monday nights, right?
Monday night.
And then NOMA Underground is Wednesday night.
Is on Wednesday night. Yep, 7 to 10. Yeah, it's the place to be.
Dana, I tell you what, you're doing great work.
Thank you.
You mean a lot to this community, and thanks for being our first guest.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.